They say grief makes you see the world different. Maybe that's why I didn't notice the storm brewing the minute I pulled into the gravel drive of my brother's lake cabin that Saturday morning. I wasn't looking for trouble. I just wanted quiet, a little space to breathe, sip some coffee on the porch, maybe talk to my brother in my head the way I'd been doing since the cancer took him last fall. But peace wasn't in the cards that day. The lavender garden David spent 20 years tending, gone. Flattened like someone had danced on it in steel boots. Solar lights snapped in half, their wires ripped up like weeds. And the little stone bird he carved during his last chemo cycle, broken in 3, lying by the lake's edge like a discarded toy. I just stood there, blinking, like maybe I'd wake up and find it all untouched. But I didn't. So I walked inside, fired up David's old desktop, and pulled footage from the security cam he'd installed under the eaves. David was always careful. That man didn't even let raccoons near his garden. The video hit me like a punch in the gut. 5 young adults blasting music by the lake around 8 p.m. the night before, coolers full of beer, throwing cans in the bushes like it was some college tailgate. The ringleader was this cocky, bleach-blonde punk who strutted like he owned the damn place. Around 9:30, there I was on the footage, walking up, calm as you like, asking them to keep it down. I even pointed at the cabin, said it was private property, asked them to clean up before they left. I remember thinking they were just dumb kids. Then I watched what came next, and I'll never forget it. After I walked off, that punk looked straight into the security cam, grinned, and said, "Watch this, boys. Time to teach the old man a lesson." And then he stomped every flower in that garden while his friends cheered him on like he was scoring touchdowns. That wasn't a prank. That was calculated. So I walked next door to Henry's place, old man with silver hair and a vegetable garden that make a Whole Foods cry. Henry's lived out here longer than anyone, so I figured he might know who the hell these kids were. I showed him the footage, and he shook his head like he'd seen it coming. "That's Patricia Walsh's boy," he muttered. "HOA president. She's been consolidating power since the last guy moved to Arizona. Now she thinks she runs the whole lake." I asked him why she'd have any interest in my brother's cabin. He looked at me and said something I still think about. Some folks don't want peace. They want control. And if your land's in the way, you're the problem. Then he pointed to a frame in the footage, a black Mercedes tucked between the trees, watching the whole thing. That's her car. She was there. She let it happen. I tried to stay level-headed. I really did. But when I knocked on her door later that afternoon, holding screenshots of the vandalism, Patricia answered like she'd been expecting me. Expensive silk blouse, wine in hand, smile like she was about to host a charity auction. "Oh yes," she said, voice dripping with rehearsed sympathy. "David was such a lovely man, such a shame." When I showed her the footage of her son stomping through the garden, her expression didn't change, not one flicker of guilt. She looked at it like I'd shown her someone else's wedding photos. "Young men make mistakes," she said. "You might be overreacting. It's just a few flowers." That's when I realized she wasn't just brushing me off, she was baiting me, testing me. When I pushed back, told her I had video of her son admitting it was intentional, her whole demeanor shifted. She walked me to a wall in her home, covered in framed HOA certificates like war medals. "I've been president here for 3 years," she said, voice tight now. "I know every regulation. You might want to review Section 12C before you accuse respected members of this community." Then came the kicker. "If you don't feel this neighborhood suits you, perhaps it's time you found somewhere that does." I left shaking, but not broken. I went back to the cabin and carved a wooden sign that read, "Private property, please respect." Just something small. Stained it, sealed it, stuck it right by the waterline where those kids had partied. Felt good, like drawing a line in the sand. But the next morning, that sign was floating in the lake, snapped clean off, tire tracks still in the mud. And in my mailbox, a violation notice from the HOA, $500 fine for unauthorized signage disrupting lakefront harmony. I nearly laughed, until I realized she was building a paper trail, a setup. Henry confirmed it, said Patricia had forced that vague rule through 2 years ago, gave her power over anything aesthetic by the lake. That's when I started digging. I tore through David's old files for hours, and then, buried deep in a folder labeled Original Purchase, I found the key. A surveyor's map dated 1987, clear as daylight. The lakefront, the land around it, even the water itself, was private property, bought by David's grandfather, passed down, never sold. The whole damn lake wasn't HOA common ground. It was ours. And she knew it. That's what hit me the hardest. Patricia had access to those documents. She let her son party on my family's land, vandalize it, then find me for trying to protect it. She was hoping I'd never find out. So I wrote her a message. Not a legal threat, not a file dump, just a line she'd know the meaning of. Patricia, I found something interesting in my brother's old papers. I think we need to talk. 2 hours later, she called the cops. Officer Rodriguez showed up. Calm guy, mid-40s, looked tired but fair. I showed him the map, the camera footage, everything. He nodded along, professional, said it looked legitimate. Then Patricia showed up, heels clicking like a villain in a courtroom drama, briefcase in hand, her son Jack, that same smirk on his face. She acted like she ran the police, presented a binder full of HOA rules, flipped right to Section 12C. In the case of disputed lakefront, she said, the HOA reserves the right to purchase the land at fair market value to preserve community access. Then she handed Officer Rodriguez an appraisal, $75,000 for the entire lakefront. I nearly choked. That land's worth millions. She was offering me peanuts and calling it charity? But she wasn't done. She said, "You have 30 days to consider our offer. We just want to resolve this peacefully. The alternative? Well, it's always more expensive." I watched them leave, Jack muttering, "Better take that camera down, old man. Won't be yours much longer." That night, I sat by the lake with a glass of David's old whiskey and almost gave up. Wrote a letter to him, said I was sorry, that maybe I wasn't strong enough to protect what he loved. But then Henry showed up, thermos of tea in hand, sat next to me like a father would. "I've been waiting for someone to fight her," he said. "Now you've got a reason." Turns out Henry had been documenting Patricia's shady finances for years. That $47,000 stone wall in her backyard, paid with HOA funds. Landscaping company, registered to her own address. Invoices for lakefront improvement that were never done, all faked. The next day, I filed a legal request for HOA financial records. Every board member got a copy. I didn't accuse, I just asked questions. And that's when Patricia panicked. Suddenly, I was getting violation notices every day. My kayak was the wrong shade of blue. My porch towel caused textile disharmony. My furniture faced the wrong way. Each fine stacked up, small, silly, but intentional. After 3 days, I got a notice saying I'd reached chronic non-compliance, that they'd be moving to acquire my land in 7 days, not 30. She was building a legal trap, a fake paper trail. But what she didn't know was that I'd already found the match. Henry and I spent days assembling everything: documents, invoices, emails, business registrations. I created a full financial analysis, tracing every dollar from the HOA, into Patricia's pockets. Then we called for an emergency HOA meeting. Patricia opened it like a queen, announced that the HOA was buying my lakefront to preserve community access, like she was doing everyone a favor. The room clapped politely. She smiled. Then I stood up and connected my laptop. First slide, security footage of Jack destroying the garden. Audible gasps. Second slide, original 1980 survey proving my family owned the lakefront. Murmurs turned into shouts. Third, comparison map showing Patricia had been trespassing for years. Fourth, invoices to Greenscape Landscaping, registered at her home address. Fifth, photo of her $47,000 wall. Then Henry stood up from the back of the room, folder in hand. "She's been stealing from us," he said.